Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. It's with great pleasure that we welcome Ash Bell back to the circle. And we're welcoming them to continue this series on Ik, the Path of Ish's 3-breath practice, the journey from when we just did 3 breaths, the creation myth, to now creating circles and trainings, and what also Ash is participating, the third of the facilitators to do this ceremony that we launched in Melbourne live, and just have a conversation about that, how this path of training and study has been influencing their lives, and how that breath and that 3-breath practice has brought them an opportunity of radical self-love. Welcome back, Ash. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Marita. Third time lucky. Third time back on the potty.
I know.
Thank you for having me.
You are a popular, not just listener, but also people love listening to you on here. So thanks so much for being back. So let's just jump right into it, and let's just talk about the 3-breath practice. How has this Ik 3-breath practice, as you've learned, as it's developed, as you've been trained, how has it influenced your life?
Influenced my life in many ways. There were some moments early on, like light bulb moments that dropped in, of these huge life shifts as I started this journey with the 3-breath practice. And the biggest one for me was understanding and recognizing how much of a disconnect I had between my parts and my being, who I am, but also in my life, this separation where I was living, and that was like my normal. But the 3 breaths helped me actually bring some clarity around how separated I was in my life, which made sense of why I was struggling so much and uncertain, feeling anxious. This was the beginning of bringing my parts together so I could feel more myself and more whole and more resolved in who I am and my work in the world.
So let's talk a little bit about these 3 parts, right? When we're doing the 3-breath practice, we're welcoming the body, the mind, and the essence, right? That is the separation that we're talking about. And so my question is, right, that light bulb moment that you had of like, wow, I didn't even know they were separate. Do you think that's how did you feel when all of a sudden you realized of this separation inside of you? That, as you said, was the norm, which is the Western norm of how to live your life.
Yeah. It felt big, and I see this everywhere I go and with people that I work with, how normal it is to have this separation, but then how huge and transformative it is to recognize that. And it's giving a voice to our parts, mind, body, and essence. And I didn't realize how much I was in conflict with my parts, how much I put myself down. I'm going to be specific about this. It was more so my body was the biggest one, of how much my mind and my essence didn't get along with my body. And I see that play out for other people as well. There's in society. And once these different parts of us are given a voice or given an opportunity to be and to breathe, so much can shift in our lives. It's incredible just that awareness in itself, even if something doesn't they're not magically going to get along all of a sudden, but that awareness in itself is massive.
So, can you describe for those who aren't familiar with the three breath practice or just the concept of, wow, I have possibly many parts to myself, and these parts aren't in, let's use the term alignment, because that's one that's used a lot. What does that feel like if you're not aware of this possibility? What does your life look like? You said, a little bit about, kind of this misalignment and how that felt. But for your body, how did it feel in your body when you were not, your mind and your essence were talking, or you didn't even know that there was an opportunity? How did that feel for you? How did that manifest in your everyday?
Yeah, manifesting in a way of a constant discomfort in being, and like an underlying buzz of anxiety, but not actually realizing what was happening, because my mind would have one voice and then my body was reacting in a different way. So I was aware. Well, it was just, actually, it wasn't aware. It was just always confusing. What I want, I didn't know how I felt, didn't know what I needed. Hypervigilance, anxiety, just that, those feelings that are just constantly uncomfortable. But for me, the discomfort was the norm. So it did take a little while to figure out the puzzle piece, but it's that busyness, it's the go, 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 it's the mind trying to control things, the mind trying to make sense of things, the mind trying to grasp information. And then my body was like, hey, wait a minute, like I don't feel okay, but I wasn't listening to it.
Why do you think modern culture doesn't want humans to come home to themselves, right? I kind of feel like it supports this whole let's blast off into space, right? Let's go colonize something else, or let's transcend and not be here. So it kind of supports it. You can see the popularity of all of those things, but why does it not support a return home to being present? What is the power of being present with yourself?
Oh, this, it's, society doesn't want you to be unique. It's sameness, it's belonging, to be controlled to fit the structure and what's seen as the norm. And then when you're present in yourself, you have more self empowerment, can make different choices, empowered choices, and you can be a unique being. So there's freedom in that. And I know you spoke about this with Mish in the podcast before this one, that society doesn't want us to be free.
I read this thing the other day, and it was talking about how personal growth is not a matter of learning new information. That's from Alan Cohen. But I still feel, right, this whole idea of limits and limitless really kind of cages humanity into this constant idea of expansion, expansion, expansion. How can these three breaths, this personal growth, instead of learning new information, right? You're learning about yourself, but it's really the unlearning of old stories. And what were those old stories that Eek has allowed you to breathe through and let go?
Mm. When you're just saying expansion, all I see is this energy like outside of ourselves. Expansion, grow, like grasp and reach from outside of ourselves. And working with the three breaths and the journey of Eek has been coming back inwards, taking responsibility, personal responsibility for where I'm at and what I'm doing in the world, words, actions, I can't remember the other part of your
No
question.
worries.
I was like, there's something I need to circle back to there. I just had it and then I forgot it.
That's fine. It will come back when it needs to come back. So we were talking a lot about the breath practice itself, right? That we teach, we do in every class that that I teach. So we lead people through it, and but we're moving, and we've been working really hard at developing new circles, breathwork circles. We have 3 launching in December. We launched the big ceremony, and as someone, you have studied a lot from from different lineages and different people. What for you was this journey of seeing a ceremony, a real ceremony, right? Very traditional ceremony being woven together versus what a lot of people are offering out there, just being like, oh, I learned this over here and I learned this over here. What is that difference of wovenness that has permission? How does that feel? How was that to witness? Because you witnessed me weaving it versus kind of a lot of people being like, oh, let me take this and let me take this, let's take the sound, or let's take a little cacao over here and let's sprinkle on, fire walking, or sprinkle on a little dance. How is it so different?
Oh, Marita, it's so different. There, not to diss what people are doing, but you can tell in spaces that people have attended different things here and there and thinking, oh yeah, I can take some of that. I'll take inspiration for that and then I'll facilitate. What you've taught us and what I've witnessed with your weaving is there is so much depth and detail, and it's so intricate, all the little parts that make up this whole ceremony, that you can feel the layers of it and the holding and the containment versus some spaces where it's more surface level and you get that, like, that hit, that high, so you feel like there's an impact, but then it doesn't sink in and integrate as much when you have that sensation. Whereas in these ceremonies that we're holding, the Eek breathwork ceremonies, there's a different sensation that ripples through the parts. It's something that will stick, will integrate, that will make change and an impact moving forward, but in a really sustainable way. What you were talking to Misha about with the slow medicine aspect of it, that we're not chasing the high, but we're doing something that's still making an impact, but that's gonna last.
So let's talk about this lasting impact and the time it takes for integration, right? You have done 2 of these. You've been training with me for a long time to get to this point, right? And a lot of training ahead. But as from the May to the September, and now you're preparing for October, because our facilitators, one thing that you might not know is they go through the process themselves. You have to go through the process, right? And so as you've gone through the process of not just facilitating, right? The process itself of you going through it, right? Because I took you through it many, many times. How did it feel? What other things have dropped in? These small, slow release capsules of slow medicine. What does it feel like? What does it look like, so that people can kind of start to understand this?
I'll explain from those really little personal things that are happening for me in my world, but hopefully it's relatable to others, so I'm not so vague in my responses. One of the main ones for me is letting go of perfectionism and actually being able to sit in a space where I'm comfortable just by being. And that has been a huge one for me. And so, being a facilitator, I put so much expectation on myself to be. I've studied, I've done all these things, I've put these expectations on that I'm going to be perfect, that I'm going to be okay. But going through these process and the personal journey that I've had to go on, perfectionism has been a huge one, to just be okay with who I am and letting go of that burden of having to be something else that I'm not. Like, that has been massive. And so what's come out of that as well is, for the last time I went through it, what I was letting go of was that need to be perfect, and to know that I matter just by being me, just by learning it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to fumble. I was really letting go of that burden that I've been holding probably most of my life, of having to show up and be shiny and sparkly all the time. And that's when I'm safe and okay, when I'm like the good girl, when I'm the good person. But like letting that go, it's just like a huge weight. So that's what I worked on with the most recent ceremony. And then before that was recognizing my grief,
Mm.
moving through my own personal grief, because this ceremony so much to so much to do with grief, that my journey this year, and it's definitely makes sense for me now being part of the Eat Breathwork ceremonies, is the beginning of this year was the start of acknowledging that there was grief that I had never felt or expressed or recognized, but just a lot in many parts of my life. And there was a need to really be present with that grief. And that's been part of my personal journey and supports so much of what we're doing in this ceremony and how I show up as a facilitator in my medicine.
Oh, that's so rich and beautiful. Thank you for sharing that journey, because that journey is medicine, right? That journey of radical self-love, of stepping into accountability to be you. That is medicine, right? And that's how in these circles we approach medicine. It's not just something that you take that is external, but it's really being accountable, right? Having agency. We talk a lot about free will and choice. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because you did also you were part of the level 1 training that we have, and we're going to offer it again next year. It was all about free will and choice. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was it was big. I like laugh at all these moments because I've had so many big realizations in these spaces of how conditioned and all this crazy programming in my being. Like, I have knowing, even exploring definitions, and to feel into the energy of making choices, having freedom, what's behind these words and what do they mean, is massive, massive for me, because I've grown up in spaces where you're told, do that because that's the way it is, or that's because you should do, or you have to do that, or you do these things in life and then you're okay and you're safe and you accept it. I mean, said something similar early on as well. When we're exploring free will and choice, I was like, wow, I have so much power in taking responsibility for myself And that is both empowering and terrifying, because also moving away from a place of I can no longer blame the external or blame my environment. Like, yes, there's an impact, but also, like, now it's up to me. I can change that, but taking my power back by taking responsibility for myself is incredible and amazing and extremely confronting. I have a part to play in what happens in my life as well, whether that's good stuff or bad stuff, whether that's ease in relationships or challenges, my life choices. Like, that's so, yeah, amazing and scary.
What are questions that you get about this ceremony that we can kind of answer here, have a little, what are those questions? What are people asking you and reaching out? Like, should I come? Should I not come? Am I ready? Am I not? What are those questions, Ash?
Yeah, I get a lot of people sliding into my DMs. There's so much curiosity, but because it's such a new thing to Melbourne and the world, people want to come, they're curious, but they're not sure. So they ask, what is eat? What kind of, actually, this is a good one for you to answer on this podcast, Rita. They say, what kind of breath work is this? What kind of method is it?
It's really interesting, right? It's an interesting, even the how the words are used, like what kind, what, the
Mm.
terminology, right? So that already tells you that there's many, as they say, methodologies, right? Now, we don't come from methodology, we come from cosmology, a way of being in the world. Everything that is created in indigenous circles is to walk a way of beauty and a way of balance. And we are interpreting how we do things, why we do things, because they're in deep relationship. So instead of being like, wow, this is a really good idea, blah, 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 I'm just going to do this. This is not even a reaction, but it is in deep committed relationship. Eek is breath. How has breath changed? Why did we all of a sudden start holding our breath? Who are the guardians of breath in the world? And so we go to them and we sit and we listen and we learn that it's not methodology, it's cosmology. So it draws a lot upon cosmology as you're in Australia, the cosmology of dreamtime. That is a cosmology. It is a way of being in the world. It's not just dreaming, right? Just as the Mayan cosmology isn't just, oh, it's about me. It's like, also, when do you plant corn? So it's I don't like to call it a method, right? It is deep relationship. I don't know if that answers it correctly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's a good answer. It's a good answer to the question. What you're saying is it's not fitting any of the boxes that people, they're asking that question, wanting it to fit somewhere that's familiar to them.
Yeah, and I think going back to your compartmentalization is like, what box do I fit this one in? Well, if you had to fit into a box, make sure it's a really and it's indigenous, right? It's an indigenous breath work. It's I created the three breaths and I can't even say I created it, right? It was a conversation with many elders. It was a conversation, a weaving of many things, and it was in deep relationship. And now we're trying to get it out there because not because of me, but it's because Eek wants it. This is the medicine of now. And I think we're in, the circles of Cuatro Manos and the path of Ish are working hard to create a bridge to give people the medicine of now, right? And we're trying to meet the Western world, not all the way where they are at, because it kind of waters everything down. But meet me in the middle. Let's have a discussion in the middle. You come to your middle of the bridge and I will come to my middle of the bridge, and we'll stay with curiosity. And it's curiosity and great dedication and 40 plus years of studying and being a lineage holder that created this. And so all my teachers, all the studies, all the people, all my ancestors, they created this. They handed it, they gave it to us, right? As an opportunity. But its roots are in that philosophy, that cosmology of being in relation. So, as we talk about that being in relation, there's a lot of other relationships that go into this ceremony, as well as other offerings that are being woven throughout the rest of this year. So, let's talk a little bit about cacao and the new Dr. Paula offerings that people are loving. Let's talk about how they're so different from, you are the cacao fairy. So, you got,
Yes.
your
Yes, I am.
finger on the thumb on the bee pulse or whatever it's called. So let's talk a little bit about these Dr. Nurse Paula blends. Why do you like them so much?
Yeah, they're great. What I'm hearing from the public, people who have purchased them, and the new shipment's going to be up online soon. Um, People love them because they're each directed to support you with something in particular. So we've got soothe, reset, thrive, and sanctuary. And most people have bought more than one, and then it's a go-to. It's a go-to for them of like, what do I need today? What's going to be my cacao for today? This weaving, and a lot of people taking it to work with them and finding that these remedies in particular have been something, a way of bringing cacao into their day-to-day lives with ease, and how special and sacred they are. And I say this to people all the time, and it's finally learning. We always get those nice candles or nice lotions or all the pretty things, and then they say, and or they buy the expensive cacao, and then people are saving it for a special occasion. And we're trying to shift that to stop saving it for a special occasion and just start using these things in your day to day. And so the Dr. Paula blends have been just that, something that is really special, but is easily woven to make every day sacred. They're great. Highly recommend.
I'm guilty of saving things, especially lotions. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, why am I getting wrinkly? Oh, because I'm not using it. you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really getting wrinkly, just so everyone knows, but I'm just kidding. But that's the thing is like we save it for when we never know what's going to happen. And it's if we start tending, right, tending to ourselves in such a way that it is honorable to be you, right? Honorable to bathe, to dress, to adorn, to support your physical temple, right? And you're walking in the world in a very different way because one thing we don't really look at is like if we're not using these products, right? A lot of time and energy and the earth went into them. We're kind of saying to the earth, you. I'm just going to use this cheap thing that was extracted from you that no one's giving back to you that, it's just like it's not in that balance, right? So self-care is really a way to start walking a way of balance with Mother Earth and a lot of people don't look at it that way. So I'm just throwing it into today. Why not, right? We got an hour, so
Love it. Yeah.
So let's keep chatting, Cacao. We have you and I this beautiful circle coming up, and I'm hoping that it gets this nice following, and we start doing this like almost on a monthly. But let's talk about why you're excited about this cacao, fern, and sound offering coming up at the end of September and going through the end of the year, and hopefully a recurring online series ceremony.
Yeah, that would be cool. So this is going to be really fun. Together, Marita and myself are holding Emergence 3-part series. So it's really exciting to be co-facilitating something with you for starters. And I'm excited for this, bringing together cacao, fern, and sound. 3 very magical, amazing medicines. What I love about having the fern as part of this, my favorite part about working with fern medicine is possibility and potential. And we're working with these tinctures that are linked to a different emotion, and everyone gets theirs intuitively picked for them, what they'll be working with for the 3 months, woven with cacao. And then sound's going to be part of the ceremony to help that integration of being, to get us out of our minds. Sound is a huge part of the work that I do in the world and part of my own self care, because for a long time it was the only tool that would get me out of my head, the only thing that would soothe and help me be oh, comfortable and okay. And woven with cacao, they work so beautifully together to help integration and just to settle that the racing thoughts in the mind, to be comfortable and okay sitting in the body, and to start to listen to what's going on with the essence and the wisdom within. So each of these things over 3 months, allowing time and space between the ceremonies, going on this journey together. It's exciting. It's going to be really cool. Do you want to add anything else to
No,
what
I
I've
think
already said?
the only other thing, and it'll kind of shift us into the energy of Hawaii. The energy of Hawaii is very present in these circles. In the cacao, as you know, we farm it here in Hawaii, we make it here. It's very different from all of the offerings and the ceremonial offerings out in the world, that many are not ceremonial, right? There's not a lot of legislation or rules that people are following. They're just kind of slapping it on almost any product. But there is something about the fern medicine, the cacao, that is done in a sacred way. So let's talk a little bit about that. They're planted in sacredness, they're planted in relationship, they're planted in that indigenous way. And so, how can you feel it, taste it, taste it to believe it, how have you seen this beautiful medicine help you, right? I know you love Hawaii, you've been out here on the farm, you've helped make cacao. So, what was it that called you to this, that you feel nurtured and, to your nature in such a more deeper way than other things that are being available out there?
When you're asking me this question, the thing that just comes up right away, and I know it sounds dorky, but I just feel the magic in it, Marita. I just feel the magic. Just summing it up in the most simplest way. And sometimes for me, it's not it's not the words that I'm really clear on, but I just know that there's a feeling,
Hmm.
and I feel it in my being, and I trust I can trust what I'm feeling with this. So, like the niggle, the knowing, the comfort, the the magic in it. Not that you're sprinkling it with magic dust, but maybe you are a little bit. It's a little bit of love, a little bit of this. Yeah, the respect and the efforts and the ceremony and the land and the holding. There's so much, and people also feel it too without even knowing too much information. Sometimes haven't they haven't read up on much, or they join things that involve the cacao. They feel it too. Just one, even just hold. Well, I was going to say just from one sip, but even just holding it, they're like, "Whoa, I feel this. This is different. There is something in this. There is a different energy in this medicine."
And one of the parts of this medicine that has received from us, and I know from you, is blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh
So
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, you live in a very urban setting. You know, when people talk about farming, they have this very like, let's, all our friends get together, buy land, and, I'm always like, no, I don't want to do that. It's hard, right? Farming is really hard. Farming in Hawaii is probably one of the hardest places to grow things, even though things grow really easily. Just it's really hard. It's actually been said to grow food in Hawaii is one of the hardest states in the United States. So let's talk about how that blood and that sweat and that tears is really a part of giving to the earth, and how you saw that shift in your relationship with cacao as she received your blood, your sweat, your tears. How did that really change things for you? How did it kind of link things together where you're like, oh, now I get, you know, the magic, or now I understand a little bit different, that it doesn't have to be something out there, but it can be small acts of everyday tending.
Mm. Yeah, the tending. I am not great at looking after myself at times. And so doing this physical work on the farm and looking after cacao, huge lessons. It's like an initiation that cacao put me through of trying to dig a hole in volcanic rock, but just meeting all these dead ends and having to try again. This was the start of it, Marita, because this was earlier in the year, and this was like the beginning of me working on like finally working on making mistakes and not knowing and having to learn those lessons the hardest way of actually like the physical work over days, and then feeling the satisfaction at the end. But I remember as soon as I'd completed the task of plant this days to plant one cacao tree, and already knowing, because I worked with cacao for a few years now, already knowing that you plant a cacao tree, it's going to be 5-7 years until it actually starts growing fruit. So there's that process in itself. It's already a really long time. But then for me, planting one tree, and you need lots of trees to be able to bring the ceremonial cacao to people, one tree took me 3 days, and I planted it, and straight away I was like, whoa, we should be charging so much more for this. Like, there is so much effort, but how people don't realize how the hard work that it takes, and it is a labor of love, deep love, deep love, and doing it knowing that, oh, and then this, like, I feel this in my heart, that that tree may or may not even make it, and still nurturing and tending to it anyway, and how that all these lessons like ripple to even looking after myself, like the trial and error and checking in, water and sun, these basic needs of a plant that I don't even recognize for myself a lot of the time. But that was huge at the time. At the time, I was like, "Whoa, this lesson. It's not all magical, light and fluffy, and oh, we're sipping cocktails by the beach in Hawaii. When you go there, it is like hardcore. It's hardcore. That land is tough, and there's a lot to learn in the best possible way, but it's not an easy process.
Yeah, and just to plant the visual, right? Because it is lava rock, you can't use shovels unless you bring in really heavy machinery, right? You're doing it by hand, which is what we do here a lot, and you're using this this huge bar, right? Tall, it's over, twice your size. Well, not twice your size. You're kind of tall, but it's heavy, right? So even sometimes pickaxes aren't the thing, but this is, yeah, you are with Pele's children negotiating,
Yep.
asking them, please make some room.
Please. And then, no, 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 I will not make this easy for you, child.
So, as someone who's been to Hawaii and who has a deep relationship with this cacao and also with Pele, tell me a little bit about what Pele has taught you through this cacao, through this ceremony that you are now facilitating with permission. What have you learned about creation?
Mm. What have I learned about creation? I just have the visual of Pele erupting right now.
Hmm.
And I'm like, which tangy am I going to go down right now? But I see her, I'm seeing her erupting in my mind right now, and her power, and how people rush to go see the eruption, which is really, really cool. But also when she's still, when she's silent, when she's waiting, that it's okay to not have those, that explosion and activation all the time, that we can be still and silent, but still strong. And Pele still celebrated in all her forms as well. And she's still visited. There's prayers, like when all parts of the journey. So, in terms of creation, that it's okay to go through the cycles of creation, the stillness, the waiting, the explosions, the death, all of it. That it we can't just keep, or I can't just keep going, going, going in this same pace all the time. That things can change and shift and pause and go a different direction. And it's okay to be powerful too, like that as well. It's okay to like show up and be seen and shine. Lots of lessons from Pele.
Lots of lessons. So, as we continue with these lessons, we have a lot of circles coming up to finish off the Gregorian year of 2023 and exciting circles in the new year. We've already talked about the ceremony, the Eek ceremony, which is in October, correct?
Correct. 14th of October in Melbourne.
And go on to Ash's website and you can buy tickets there. We have Fern and Cacao starting at the end of September. And then if people aren't, still kind of figuring out where that niggle is leading them, we have other opportunities on October. Two new workshops that we're doing, that you and Vesna are doing, that we're creating. We just literally finished yesterday with a lot of
Yep.
giggling. Uh,
Ready to go.
Pretty fresh. So let's talk about those, and then also the retreat in December, and that should give us so much. Give us some
Plenty of
plenty,
options.
plenty of options for people to join a circle and to meet you in person, and Vesna and Auntie Mish, and get something. Be able to join something, be able to experience at whatever level you are ready to experience. So let's talk about these two. We're calling them workshops. Why don't you share a little bit about them, Ash?
Yeah. So, coming up in October, two workshops that Vesta and I are beginning to facilitate, and there'll be other people involved down the track as well to help facilitate these. So, this is just the beginning, and these are happening in Melbourne as well, and maybe online at some stage too. The first one is planting the medicine, and this workshop has been designed for people who have a curiosity for plant medicine. Specifically in this space, it will be cacao. If you've been to a ceremony, or maybe you haven't been to a ceremony, or even down the track you're thinking of being a facilitator might be a thing for me, it's more of an educational circle and not just a ceremony where you can learn more about what plant medicine means, what it's like to be in an Indigenous circle. This is coming from the perspective of an Indigenous space, so plant medicine from an Indigenous perspective. So what it means to be in circle, plant medicine, and how to build relationship with the world around you. And if you're working with plant medicine, you have to have a deep relationship with plant medicine. And that's, you mentioning this is woven into everything that you say and do, Marita. Sometimes people need to begin the journey of understanding what that actually means and how they can do it for themselves. So that's why this initial workshop has been designed. So it's just a really easy intro. We'll have fun, we can play. It's not going to be super serious, but a really cool opportunity to learn. And then following on from that is warrior wisdom for ceremony. So that will be the next level, or for anyone who's already a facilitator doing different work in the world and wants to join to sit and learn about warrior wisdom. What does that actually mean? There'll be a deepening of relationships in this space as well. Do you want to add anything else to this, Fit?
Yeah, and I think what, again, these workshops are, we stay curious in them, we stay playful, we stay courageous in them, and they're really an introduction. And I think, especially the first one, the plant one, we're going to redefine plant medicine, or plants medicine relationship, and you'll be surprised at some of the sacred plants that many Indigenous people hold in super high regards that you might not even think are sacred because of the overuse. And so we're approaching it in a different way, that you don't just have to take something, consume something to be in relationship. So we're kind of approaching it from a very basic, I shouldn't say, but a fundamental way of being in balance, right? Being in relationship. And what does that really mean from an Indigenous perspective? And then the warrior ceremony one, there's a lot of teachers out there and facilitators that come from healing backgrounds or teaching backgrounds. I come from a warrior background. And so I teach very differently how to lead ceremony. I always tell all the people who are joining me for the cacao facilitator class, right? You're not going to get this class anywhere else. There's facilitator classes all around the world now for cacao, how to be a warrior in that. And we're going to redefine what you think warrior is, right? It's not about just going to war. It's actually how not to and how to really address a lot of these teachings and facilitation. Doesn't mean you go outside of yourself, but it's a deep internal journey to yourself and reclaiming that accountability. So I'm super excited about these. They're launching in Australia, and again, we're going to see. We'll probably offer them in the new year, and we'll see how that comes about. And then we have a beautiful, if you want to spend a lot of time with Ash, Auntie Mish, and Vesna, we have something coming up in December, and let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So, we're going to hold a retreat again in Melbourne. Everyone just has to come to Melbourne. Melbourne is like the beginning of all these things, it seems.
Before you take it on to Frankie and the road, right?
Yeah, before they travel across Australia. I mean, the goal is to reach different corners of the earth, but they're beginning here. So, uh, everyone come to Melbourne. And if you're already in Melbourne, please join. So, we're going to be hosting a retreat, which will involve the Eek breathwork ceremony again. And actually, before I talk more about that, I want to say that if you've been to one ceremony, they're never the same, and also we change all the time as individuals. So it's powerful to continue to attend these because you're changing and you'll always get a different experience. So we've been talking about the October ceremony that's coming up, and then December running it again, but in the retreat format. So that's part of it. And then running different circles within this as well, Marita, right?
Yeah, there's 3 new circles that we're launching.
Remind me, please.
At the level 2, we have a lot of things going on. Level 2 EEK, I guess facilitators will come up with a name. Stewards, will be able to go out there and present, and they're breaking down the concepts of the breath work. They break down their circles. They're not ceremonies. And so it's just a great way. And I love that we're doing it all on a nice weekend, that you get to just be in ceremony. And then again, we're practical people, indigenous people. So we're going to also teach you how you don't just have to climb up to the top of a mountain or have a weekend and then you go back and you live your life the same way you did before you come. But these are things, again, that if you sit with them and if you're patient and if you allow yourself to receive, that's the big thing, right? A lot of times we negotiate things to our terms and we only accept them if they come to us in a way that we have deemed valuable or that we like. That programming of it has to feel a certain way, you know, I kind of laugh on it because it's very Western programming. For us, if you're having trouble and hardship getting to a ceremony, that means it's going to be really powerful. And when I hear it from the Western world, people are like, "Oh, it's just there's too much coming up. That means there's too much in the
Not
way
meant to be.
I shouldn't go, right? Or I don't
Yeah.
feel like it." And that's when we say that's when you should be in the circle. That's
Yeah.
when you got to get
Yeah.
yourself to a ceremony. It's a very different way because it's not about isolation. We heal in community and we go into these community circles, into these cultural exchanges to witness and be witnessed. And that's such a powerful thing. And we talk a lot about it in the ceremonies and in these circles. What does it mean to be witnessed? So let's end on that note of a conversation. How has being witnessed, Ash, allowed you to grow, expand, come home to yourself versus being in circles where people are always trying to solve problems for you? So let's talk about that practice of witnessing.
Hmm. Oh, witnessing feels so much different to be seen, to it's not even about being validated, but just to know that I can share, express, be where I'm at, and that is heard and received, and I'm held in that. There is a irritation that occurs in my body for the problem solving stuff that happens in some circles, to be in a space that maybe there's challenges or having a hard time, and being in these different spaces where they don't practice witnessing and they try and problem solve to make you feel better because they feel like the aim is we've got to make people feel better, whereas witnessing is like to be okay no matter where you're at. And so it helps me especially, or anyone, but from my own experience of like that acceptance of like it's not wrong to be where I'm at right now if I'm having a hard time, or if I don't feel so shiny or bright, or if I'm sad or in pain or suffering, that is just as valued and accepted than, oh, I'm having a great time and everything feels easy and amazing. It's just all of it's welcome. Very, very different energy to like the problem solving, fix it approach.
And it's just really such a beautiful practice that has been passed down to me for generation upon generation. And it's a beautiful way to be instead of having to do and problem solve, as you said. So, Ash, any last thing you want to talk about? Ask any question. You can ask me a question if you want, or anything else that's. I know you always got that niggle. So, what are you feeling? Any?
We've covered a lot.
I
We've gone
know.
down lots of different pathways today. I feel pretty
Complete.
complete. It's just more the niggles there because it's time to share this with the world, and it's exciting, and really want to share this medicine with others because it does change lives, and it's not something that people are used to experiencing. So more my niggle right now is the enthusiasm of like, let's do this, let's share, let's play, let's learn from each other, let's grow together. That's where I'm sitting.
Beautiful. What a beautiful invitation. And yes, if you are listening to this and you feel a niggle or a wiggle, find a way to get into these spaces. Since a lot of people slide into Ash's DMs, send them a DM. Or also, you can look online on their website or at the Path of Ish too. There's information there. If you want to look up about cacao and why we are really one of the only people doing slave-free cacao, check out our website at Cuatro Manos. And that's another thing, you're working with medicine that's, never experienced slavery. And slavery, modern day, still exists, right? There's no such thing as slave-free chocolate because the minute you put sugar in it, there's so much slavery in sugar. So we've eliminated that because ceremonial cacao never has sugar. So if you see any ceremonial blends of cacao out there, that's not considered ceremonial. And this is just for information, not to shame anyone, right? The more you know, the more you can be accountable and you can be in a better relationship. So I hope that you will take small steps, sit in these circles. Ash has tons of offerings all the time and is local to Melbourne and also does one-on-one work. And yeah, we're super excited to launch this in gratitude to Melbourne and gratitude to the country of Australia who welcomed me back a long time ago. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's why we're offering all of this as a thank you in return. So I hope that you we'll see you in a circle soon, either online or in Melbourne. And then hopefully, like Ash said, the rest of Australia and the world. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ash. Thanks for your
Thank you.
dedication. Yeah, thanks for your dedication and also your continued path of deepening. I witnessed that, and thank you so much for being on your path.
Thank you so much, Marita. This was fun. Yay.
As always, third
Woohoo.
time's a charm, right? Beautiful. Shide. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.